All right, excited to have head coach of the Sacramento Republic, Mark Briggs, back on the podcast. Coach, good to see you, and thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It's been a while,
I know, it has been a while.
I thought you were ignoring me.
It has been a while. I'm sorry. Well, I'm excited to talk to you now. Team's obviously off to a great start. I think maybe it was last time we talked about it was, okay, at the start of the season, these first 6 games, I know we're further than that now, but are very important. We kind of built the preseason around that. Obviously, it's been a tough schedule. You've played some of the top teams in the West and in the East, and a lot of the teams, if you base it strength of schedule, it's been an unbelievable start, not only to be in first place league overwide, but you played essentially every playoff team in the West and the top 3 teams in the East. Like, how do you take that in early on in the season? I know it's still early, but you have to say, okay, we've matched up against the best teams. We've had good results. Do you guys think about that, talk about that, or is it more just game by game?
Yeah, I think it's a little mixture of both. I think we have had a difficult schedule. You know, if you look at the opponents that we've played against, you wouldn't expect those guys to, like you say, be at the top of their league in the playoffs, competing for the championship. So it's been a difficult start for our guys, but I think first and foremost, yes, we have to take it game by game, but also with the results we've had over the start of the season, it's got to give our guys confidence. It's got to give our guys belief, to be in the position we're in and have competed against the teams that we have. It has to instill a confidence and a belief that we can go on to bigger and better things.
When you kind of come into this spot of the season and you're, almost halfway or about a third, and you take a look and you're like, okay, now we're in first place. It's kind of a spot where the club hasn't really been in a while, where you're top of the table. How does the mentality change from chasing to now we have to hold teams off? And we had a target on our back last year in the Cup, but in a different way, trying to stay above everybody week after week.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing. I'm fortunate in regard that, like, I've been in this position before, and so I have experience of, with the Monarchs in 2017, I have experience of being chased. But for the guys, we have to worry about ourselves, and I keep trying to tell them we have to focus on ourselves, and we have to focus on who we are as a group of individuals, who we are as a collective team, and make sure that on a daily basis we bring the best version of ourselves, and we're also present in that moment, present in regards to we're there and we're focused in on that day, and we're focused in on training, we're focused in on the video, the analysis, the upcoming opponent, and we're not worried about what we've done so far in the past or what's coming in the future. Like, be present, be the best version of ourselves, and push ourselves. Don't accept that what we're doing now is enough, because it's not. Like, we still have another 20-30% that's in this group, and the capabilities of this group and goals of this group can only be one thing. And in order to get to that thing, or even close to that thing, which is obviously a championship, you have to push yourselves. You have to push your limits. You have to push yourselves to the point of no return, so to speak. We've got to make sure that we maximise the potential of this group.
Quickly, I want to talk just briefly about Open Cup from this year. I actually had a fan come up and ask me this question, and made sure he wanted me to ask it to either you or a player who was on last year's team. Last year, you're having to balance roster, balance playing time to make sure guys' legs stay fresh. You're obviously still having to do that, but at a different level. Is there any sort of relief of, all right, now we know what we can focus on, rather than you're trying to balance it? Is there any relief in that aspect, or no, not at all?
It's interesting because, me and Todd and Kevin had discussions about this and talks about this. Obviously last year with our roster and with the attention we received with the cup run and making the Open Cup final, it was fantastic. Like, it was like a dream for everyone involved. But it was also very taxing, very strenuous, mentally, physically, emotionally, every single element. It was taxing. So when we played Colorado, you obviously you want to win, and I felt the performance. When you play MLS teams, you can never give up 2 goals early on. And the guys, don't get me wrong, the guys did fantastic and showed resilience coming back, and the rest is history. Conceding that 3rd goal was a killer. So like you want to go into games and win them, and we wanted to win that. But when you sit back and when you look at the bigger picture, it is a little different now. It is a little easier to manage the minutes of the players, to manage the squad, to try and put our best 11 on the field on a weekly basis. Obviously, given injuries, given suspensions or whatever else comes up, it is a little bit of a relief that we can focus on one competition and put all our eggs in the one basket, so to speak.
And there, last year's run, there is a little bit of magic involved. There's a little bit of luck, like things like that. So when Sebastian scores that 2nd goal, you're like, oh man, is the magic still happening?
It's happening again. The 2 goals Sebastian scored that night, to be honest, were like high level goals. But like I say, you can't concede 2 goals in the opening 12 minutes and then get yourself back in it to then give another goal, And arguably we could have had a penalty just before their 3rd. So it was gutting, because I actually feel our roster's better equipped this year to handle another cup run. But I'm also a realist in the fact that, look, it was always going to be difficult for us to have another cup run. For a USL team to reach the Open Cup final, it's a huge feat. It's a huge thing, and I think you're seeing that this year. Like, USL clubs have done well to get to the positions that they got to. Obviously, Pittsburgh, Birmingham, making the quarterfinals. But I think for the MLS teams, they're not going to want a USL team to make it again. So for us, the target on our back was obviously, hey, they're a good team. We've got to make sure we're at it, and it was always going to be difficult.
Well, and I think the lesson you guys, took from that Colorado match kind of has been flipped this year, where I forget how many matches in a row, and I know the stats I've showed this, like, you guys are scoring early often now, and you're getting up early, and that's almost at times when we've seen the game open up and you beat a Louisville 5-0. You beat teams that are pretty good. You beat them handily by scoring those early goals. How much of an impact has that been, like, something you guys have been focusing on in the league?
Yeah, it's a detail that we've really honed in on. It's something that we want as part of our identity. We want to be on the front foot. We want to start games on the front foot in a positive manner, especially when we're at home. Every game we want to start well. But when we're at home, this is our field, this is our stadium. Our fans really get behind us when you start on the front foot, when you give them something to cheer about early. And that's what we have to do in order for us to perform at our best, to perform at our maximum. We've put a real focus on starting positive and starting on the front foot. Because when we start on the front foot and when our players have confidence, which you get from starting positively, we're a really difficult team to play against.
You, ever since we started this podcast, you've talked about wanting to play beautiful football and being able to score goals and attack. I feel like this year has been seeing that come to fruition in multiple different ways. Guys scoring, Cicerone up for competing for the Golden Boots, and Sebastian Herrera has been unbelievable as well. Does this feel like this is kind of the style you have the players to play how you've always wanted to play?
I think first and foremost it's a process, right? And I knew coming in that process wasn't just gonna hit the ground running and click straight away. And we managed to, like I've said in the past, I was fortunate to continue as the head coach of this club. Todd and Kevin could have gone in a different direction when we didn't make the playoffs. Thankfully and fortunately enough for me that they backed me and they stood by me, and then obviously myself, Todd and Kevin put together a roster last year that we were happy with and that we were proud of, and I think we've been able to build on that this year, and I think you're starting to see the fruits of a lot of labour over the last 4 years. This just doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and the process is still ongoing and continually evolving. But we're at a place now where you're starting to see who we are as a team, an identity, a style of play, a philosophy that the players are executing and carrying out.
You can see it the last couple matches, getting draws against Tampa Bay, San Diego. There's a sense of kind of watching it that those are disappointing results in a way, because in reality it feels like you played better than both those teams in their place. Maybe the first 35 minutes against Tampa Bay, take that out.
Yeah. God. Yeah. I think I tend to agree with you completely. I think what you said about earlier in the year, like getting results against top teams, against Louisville, going to San Antonio, getting a point, beating San Diego at home, Colorado at home, beating these teams can only instill belief, first and foremost. When you have belief, you then need to have confidence. On top of that, you need to have a culture within the club, within the locker room, that wants to win. We're fortunate that we have a group of players that are hungry. We have a group of players that do want to win. We obviously have a staff that also wants to win and wants to produce. But it's very important now that belief and that confidence, complacency doesn't creep in. Because if complacency creeps in, it can become a dangerous thing. And professional sports, you can be on top of the mountain 1 minute, but you can quickly fall. And when your standards drop and when certain things go, that complacency becomes a really dangerous element. And we've got to make sure that complacency doesn't creep in, and we continue to perform at the level and continue to hold the standards that we've set.
When you guys go into the season and kind of looking back, I remember, I feel like this is the first year, or I just shouldn't say that. I say this year it has been magnified. When we're at home or we're on the road, you can't look away, because at any time you guys can score. I mean, it's felt like that kind of all year long.
Right.
And I want to ask specifically about kind of how the midfield has changed throughout this year, right? Obviously, Roro goes down with the injury. Arnold Lopez has been playing so well. You moved Luis Felipe higher in certain instances. Nick Ross has come in and played an integral role. How much has that been, I guess, a positive for you, is having a midfield that can do multiple different things at different times? You can lose a guy who's so good and creative as Roro and still be able to kind of fill some of that void. Maybe not all of it because of how unbelievable he is, but being able to try and kind of piece together, a successful midfield.
Yeah, I think if you look at our midfield last year, we had a successful midfield. We had a successful group with where we got to. But I think with where we're going and what we want to achieve, that you consistently have to strive to be better. So what we did last year was great, but now we had to go away and we had to say, what areas do we need to get better? How can we get better? And then it's kind of making sure that you add the correct pieces that are able to implement the things that are going to make the group better. So for example, we were obviously happy defensively last year. We were very happy, but we wanted to be better. That's where Shane comes in. That's where Jared comes in. That's where Johnny comes in. And then you've obviously got Lee. You've got Connor. You've got young Ermias, who's only seen a couple of times. But we feel that we got better in one, defensively, the hunger to keep the ball out of our goal first and foremost. But then secondly, being able to do the things that we need them to do when we have possession of the ball. And we think Jared and Shane primarily have really come in and helped us in possession of the ball, as well as out of possession. Because I felt like we didn't retain possession as much as we should have last year. Then you go into midfield. We obviously had a strong midfield: Nick Ross, Matt Lagrassa, Luis Felipe. You know what I mean? And I just felt like we asked Matt, we asked Nick, we asked Luis to play as number sixes last year, like definitive six, when it's not really their games. They're more box to box, energetic, and we needed to find a specific six. Obviously, Arnold Lopez, who we bought in, and I think he's been something, almost the cog in the wheel, so to speak. Like he does a lot of things from a defensive standpoint. Breaks up a lot of plays, covers a lot of ground, reads the game exceptionally well, and protects the back four exceptionally well. But then in possession of the ball, he allows us to build out from Danny Vitiello. He allows us to switch the point of attack. He's the cog, he's the pivot in a lot of the things we do, which has also allowed us to now slightly tweak Luis's role, slightly tweak Matt's role when he's in the team. And obviously Nick, we've been able to find a role that he's excelled in. But Arnold's allowed us to evolve as a group to go to the next phase in regards where we want to be from a philosophy standpoint, a style of play standpoint.
It's been fascinating to watch, because I was going to say, it feels like a lot of the goals have started with Arnold. If you back it up way back, whether it's him winning the ball or him kind of beginning that counter-attack, or beginning the attack, finding a kind of threading a needle with a pass, and then all of a sudden we're in. He may not get the assist for it, but he may get the hockey assist or whatever before the hockey assist is called. But he's been just so good. By the way, incredibly talented at just tackling, just somehow getting a foot in it.
Yeah, he does. He reads the game. He reads the game extremely well, and then he has athletic capabilities which allow him to close down space and allow him to nick the ball in moments that people aren't necessarily anticipating or expecting. So no, he's got to be a bit smarter with his yellow cards. He reads the game well and does things exceptionally well for us, but he's got to be better with the yellow cards. Which he's done okay with the last few games. So he's understanding the American way and the officiating within USL. Might be in trouble for that.
You didn't say anything. We'll cut it. You were alluding.
I was alluding. Yeah. I was alluding.
Yeah. Well, going forward, I want to talk about how much, so for instance, Friday's goal. I'm so used to saying Saturday. Beautiful team goal. I mean, unbelievable. Luis so unselfish to find Dami easily takes one tap, knocks it in. The attack.
Can I just stop you there? Yeah. Everyone's talking about what a beautiful goal it was, right? It was a great goal. Don't get me wrong. But it started when we got the ball back from the referee. 6 or 7 passes before what's shown. It started when the ball dropped to Luis, who then drops it back to Arnold. It goes out to Jack. It goes up to Jared may have played Jack, actually. Jack comes into Arnold, back to Connor, back to Arnold, back to Danny Vitiello, out to Connor. Connor clips it into Sebastian, Nick in behind to Sebastian to Luis to Dami, then the goal. They only show the 4 passes which lead up to the goal, but there was a lot of play before that, which I was really pleased with. Yes, they are the moments. That's what you live for. Those are the moments there. You're like,
something happens, play breaks down, something happens, but that's a goal where you're like, we did everything almost to perfection.
Yeah, because it's really difficult to score a goal.
Right.
It's difficult to score a goal, and the goal on Saturday was obviously a goal that you're proud of, because the style, the movements, the recognition of the movements, the executing the pass to meet the movements, and then the finish. Dami's composure, just taking a good first touch, setting himself, hitting the target. It was simple, but it was played at a pace, and the movements were done in specific times and at the right moments against a very good team. So you know, I think it's important that those things are recognised. Every goal's you're going to celebrate because it's hard to score a goal, but when you get a goal like that kind of eclipses work that goes on a daily basis, it's nice.
And I want to ask about Russell, who's been just electric this year. Him and Sebastian have been so good, and who you've pieced in with them, the Gecko to Roro when he was healthy.
Nick Ross,
yep. And so, specifically, I want to ask about Russell, though, because he is such a bulldozer. And when I had him on the pod, he was a former hockey player, which if you watch him, it makes total sense. Have you had any conversations like, hey, Russell, maybe go down every once in a while? Have you had the, no?
Yeah, I think with Russell, like he wants to win so bad.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to score so bad. And that's like what you want, right? You want people first and foremost who care, and you want people who have the desire and the hunger to, one, make the movements that puts them in position to score the goals, but two, to do whatever he has to do for the benefit of the team. You know, and he has the attitude, he has the mentality that we need at this club, and I think he's helped in developing that culture, that mentality with others, with his desire on a daily basis. And I think that's rubbing off on others. And we already had, don't be wrong, look, we had players who have that. But seeing Russell's professionalism and Russell's focus on a daily basis and his willingness to win in anything he does, that's what you need, that's what it takes, and that's why he's been at the top of the goal scoring charts for the last how many years in the USL, because he has standards and he has high expectations of himself.
It seems like that now teams, for a beginning there, they didn't really know what to expect from Sebastian. Didn't have much film on him because it was early in the year.
Right.
You know, now they know, okay, we got to watch Russell. And Sebastian has kind of benefited a little bit from that. And now they're almost benefiting off each other because teams are having to pay attention to them and keep an eye on them even more. And then you talk about the guys who've come into Keko, Nick Ross, into that additional forward winger spot. I mean, it seems like we've talked about depth for a long time, is you are finding ways to, like Nick Ross, not historically a guy who plays in that type of role, but he is filled in a great way. Like, what is it, the system? What is it about, I guess, that group this year, that is the ability to kind of play off one another and communicate one another without really having to talk as much?
Their football IQ. Nick Ross is one of the smartest footballers that I've ever worked with. His football IQ, the way he sees the game, the way he can execute passes within the game is of a very, very high level. And I'm over the moon for Nick, because he's had a hard road since he's been here. In and out of the team, he's had little niggly injuries. There's been moments where he probably should have been in the team but hasn't been in the team, and now he's come into the team, and the Roro injury has almost opened up an opportunity for him, and he grabbed it, you know, scoring the goal in the Open Cup against Oakland. And I think he's just gone on to better things since then. You know, I think he's kind of excelled in that role, and right now he's one of our best players.
That has happened multiple times this year. Guy goes down with an injury, Domi, for instance, early on in the year. Aldair comes in, steps up, plays incredibly well, makes it a tough decision when Domi comes back.
Yeah, for sure.
Lee out earlier in the year, still nagging from last year, comes in, you got to figure out, okay, what do I do at center back? It seems like that continues to be something where guys are stepping up in situations where they know, hey, maybe this is short term, but I got to make it count. That says a lot.
I think it's something that we've spoke about as a group, and I said to them at the start of the year, or you know, like you have three choices, three options, right? You're either in 100%. You're in 100% on a daily basis, Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether you're in the team, whether you're out of the team, you're always there, you're always in, and you're always going to be a positive energy. Second option, you're out. You know, you're out. Don't want to be here. Don't like my team. Don't like the coach. I've got negative energy. There's always an excuse. Or there's the one where you're kind of like, today I feel good. You know, I'm in the team this week. I'm with the group. I'm positive. He's dropped me. That's it. I'm not in. I'm out. That's generally what happened. And we spoke to the guys about, look, there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to be in the team. You're going to be out the team. You might be scoring goals. You might not be able to hit a barn door. You might be conceding goals. You might not be able to pass to your teammate. There's all sorts of scenarios that you're going to face throughout the year as an individual. But it's very important that you try, and this is harder, this is easier said than done. It's really difficult to remain positive, to remain focused, to remain professional when you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. But I think what our guys have done a fantastic job of, not all of them, there's a couple, you know, you always have a couple, but there's the majority of our guys have had that positive energy, whether they're in the team, whether they're out the team, which then allows you, when you get an opportunity and you're in a positive headspace, you have a greater chance of taking the opportunity that's given, and you're ready for it. Whereas you have a negative energy, a negative mindset, and there's always somebody else to blame, there's always an excuse. You get the opportunity, and 9 times out of 10, you don't perform at the level you know you can, and there's another excuse. And I think our guys have done a good job in being positive, and Aldair taking his chance, and obviously the Lee, the Shane, the Jared, the Connor, the decisions that I'm having to make are like really difficult, Connor, like really difficult. And that's what you want from your players, like up top now, like Keko, Nick Ross, Sebastian, Russell, Zico still has so much that he can give. Like, it's difficult to pick a team, you know, and Matt's had a couple of injuries in the middle of the field, but the positive energy, the positive togetherness within the culture enables players to take opportunities when they get them.
There's like a life lesson in that somewhere too, by the way.
I'm sure maybe there is. There always is, Con, right? There always is.
For sure, but like, you know, just being positive, thinking positive, getting ready, knowing that the chance is coming is something that I think people who aren't professional athletes can speak to.
But it's really difficult. It's not easy. And you can't sit here and say, you know, I'm going to be positive today. It doesn't happen like that. You have to mentally focus on how you're going to be positive, on why you're going to be positive, and the outcomes that come from being positive. It's contagious. And then once you can get a group to that level, it becomes the culture, it becomes the environment. And that's what we have to make sure we keep.
I want to ask you, before we go, Roro goes down with the injury. Obviously, everybody's heartbroken for him, and can't wait to see him back on the field.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's such a big part of this club historically, but also he's really good right now. And I think we thought that, like, sometimes even I do it. I catch myself. I'm like, I talk about him because he's been so good,
Right.
historically, but like, no, he's one of our top players right now, specifically last year. So
that's where, like, a lot of people listen. Roro's a great player, and Roro has a history of doing great things at the club and at other clubs. But a lot of times, like, people talk about Roro in the past tense. Like, Roro was one of our best players last year, one of our most consistent performers last year, and this year up until his injury. So I think, like, people should give Roro a little bit of respect. Like, yes, he's an older one of our older players, but that's irrelevant. Like, age is just a number. Like, people, like, I heard somebody say a couple of weeks back, or maybe even last week, that Roro's lost his, I can't remember what he was saying now, but he's not what he was. Roro, as a footballer, somebody tell me what Roro can't do now, what he was doing years ago. Because I'd arguably say he's a better, more complete player now than what he was 5-6 years ago. what Roro accomplished last year and what he was doing for us this year and what he will do when he comes back he shouldn't get a slap in the face. People should look at his quality now and what he brings to the table now. And when his career's over in 3 or 4 years, then you can talk about the past. But like, you should put some respect on what Roro's doing now and what he continually does for this team.
No, you're absolutely right. And it is hard because it is like he has had so many amazing moments. You get lost in those moments and you don't think about like how great he was last weekend. Like it is anyway. But yeah. I completely agree with you. So I'm excited to see when he comes back, because I know obviously another tough decision is going to be coming. And
for sure.
That's going to be unbelievable.
But what people don't see with Roro, like, look, for a footballer to go through and have a serious injury, no matter what age you are, it's difficult. And there's really trying moments when you're on your own and you're not on the field. And for an injury like Roro's, where he can't walk and he's on crutches and he can't play with his kids and he can't walk up the stairs, like little things that we take for granted he can't do. But then on top of that, he can't be on the field and help the guys. But Roro's comes into the club and his energy is infectious. He's obviously the leader and he's out on the field now. He's on his crutches, he's walking around and he's still giving advice to our players. He's still helping our players, which is credit to Roro, like what he brings to the table. We have him analysing teams, like I have him helping out with the analysis of the opponent to keep his brain ticking over, because he needs that. And he'll come back. He'll be a breath of fresh air for us at a really critical time in the season. It'll be like having a brand new player back.
I was just going to ask that, going towards that, because you don't want to peak too early in the season, right? I think I remember talking to Moffat about this last year in June. You had the Open Cup going on, and
right.
You won Coach of the Month. Team's playing so well. It's like, this is all great. You don't want to peak too early.
Right.
How do you, in terms of that aspect, is it going to be a huge positive to be able to have somebody who's so good, so integral, so smart, leadership in so many different ways, have him come back into the team in a spot where there's going to be a mid-season or three quarters of the season grind that you guys are trying to continually get past?
Yeah, for sure. I think when Roro gets back, it's going to be a massive lift for everyone, the club, the fans, the city. When we see him back on the field and crossing that white line again, it's going to be a big lift for everyone, and we've just got to make sure that he follows his rehab and he does the things he's supposed to do and pushes himself in the right moments, but he gets himself back in a safe and healthy manner, because we're going to need him. A player of that quality, any team needs, and we're no different. And the guys have took the opportunity with him being down, and the guys have rallied around him and one another, and people have took on the mantle. But there's no doubt that when we get the opportunity to have him back in the team, to have him back on the field, it's going to be a huge lift.
Lastly, before we go, we always do this. What's your Wolves update for us? How are you feeling? As we had transfer market coming up?
Yeah, it'll be interesting what happens in the window. It'll be interesting if the coach stays. The coach has called out the club and said, I need to be backed, otherwise I'm off. So it'll be interesting if he's backed, because you need to be backed, otherwise you can't be successful. So he did a great job, and Wolves were struggling, and got them to safe and staying in the Premier League and finishing like 13th, I think it was. In the Premier League, so they were safe and they live to fight another season. So all in all, happy with the Wolves developments right now. But it'd be interesting to see what this off season brings.
Yeah, it is going to be. It's going to be an interesting window.
For sure.
It's going to be unbelievable. I guess one thing I should mention: do you think that this is a little prediction with the excitement of Messi coming and playing in America, World Cup in 2026? Do you think that how much of a difference do you think that's going to make in American soccer, football, and the development of people like, all right, there is we have world-class players, don't get me wrong,
right?
But completely, I was talking, I didn't say this to Todd because I didn't want to offend him, but like Beckham coming, big deal.
Right.
This feels like there is one of the greatest of all time now coming.
The greatest. The fact that we have Lionel Messi playing football in America, no matter his age, he's the greatest player that the world's seen. You know, him and Maradona for me. Yeah, of course. But no, to have him here, I think we're gonna see excitement. I think every stadium he's playing in is already sold out. And I hope for the game that like it really evolves and it really goes to the next level now. And I think having somebody like Lionel Messi, somebody of his caliber, playing football in our league, in our country, it can only make the game better, and it can only make the game grow. Now, whether the game grows to, you know, the big three, so to speak, you know, baseball, football, basketball, remains to be seen. But it's certainly going to garner an awful lot of attention and excitement.
No doubt, it's going to be interesting to see. Well, last thing, I mean, we got a couple big. Are you excited to be back home? I imagine.
I can't wait to be back home. Like the last 3 weeks has been grueling.
Yeah.
Thank you USL for, you know, the road trips to Hartford, and then the following week to Tampa Bay, and then we have it again next month, by the way, in Pittsburgh and Loudoun. So really looking forward to those trips. Much appreciated. But no, it's something you have to handle, right? It's something that you have to deal with, and I think the guys, their focus and the attitude they've shown on the road over the past couple of weeks has been really a breath of fresh air. And now we've got to come home and we've got to capitalise on the points we got on the road and really execute at home and continue with our home form. And hopefully, because we haven't been at home so long, we can get a good crowd at Heart Health Park. The weather's going to be beautiful. It's summer. Kids have broken up from school now. It's Beer Fest, you know, Beer Fest. What's it called? Brew Fest. I was close. Hopefully, you know, there'll be a few people with a little bit of beer inside the systems and can give the Monterrey players, you know, a little more stick, and they can get behind our players a little more louder.
I think it's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think we, as fans, I think we forget to harp on the opposing teams because a lot of times we're so harping on the official.
Yes. Look, I've got to do a good job at this as well. I've got to do a better job. We've just got to leave the officials alone. We understand it's a difficult position, but I think we've got to leave them alone, and we've got to get on the opponent. You know, I remember going to the Kings games, and the Kings games, they were absolutely going after the Golden State Warriors players. So, like, let's leave the officiating to itself and let them do what they need to do. Players, staff, fans, and let's focus on what we can control, and that's the atmosphere within our stadium. Let's get behind our players and let's give the opposition players hell, because Sacramento's certainly good at doing that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you for joining us. This was a lot of fun, as always. I don't know how long we went, but it's at least 35 minutes. So
I mean, it's been so long that you haven't had me on the show like that. I feel like I have to maximise the opportunity to be on the podcast. So we'll, you know, that's not a dig or anything on, you know, we'll.
I won't take it.
No, there's been some great podcasts though. It really has. I like the guests.
I appreciate it.
I'm still waiting. You have to get Caparelli and Dave on.
We gotta. So we have some. I have some plans.
Okay, I like those plans. I like to hear that.
I have some plans. I think it'll be good. I don't even know if I think I'm just need to start in just one question and they will just start.
You just need to like nudge the conversation in the direction, and then those pair will take over.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting. We'll make sure like hands down. Like no, we don't want to have any issues. But yeah, that will be fun.
There'll be a lot of animation.
Yes, definitely. Well, thanks for coming on. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Excited to see the boys back at home.
Yeah, we're excited to be home, and thanks for having me on in all seriousness.